Great. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. In today's webinar, we'll be discussing securing the mobile endpoints with Quokka and Microsoft. Introducing myself, Vijay Pawar. I head up product management here at Quokka. My experience over the last many years has been in mobile device management, mobile security, where I actually spent many years at a UEM provider and also integrated an MTD. So, a lot of battle stories out there, which we'll get to some of them in this webinar. Besides that, have been in the identity and access management space for years. Also joining me is Chris. Chris, over to you for an intro.
Yeah, thanks, BJ. Welcome, everyone. Excited to talk about this topic today. Been a very hot topic as in conversations with clients all over the place, especially in the U.S. And my background, real quick, is pretty much 10 years at Quokka. I've been here for a long time, working on app vetting tools initially, and then spent most of my time here actually helping to implement app vetting programs, tooling, including the tooling itself, surrounding programs, and integrations with other tools. And today we're going to focus on one of those integrations, which is a very popular one today with one of the leading UEM, MDM vendors in Microsoft Intune. So looking forward to sharing some stories today about how this technology can integrate, advantages of working together with the Intune environment and other things, and actually showing you what it looks like. So that'll be fun. Back to you,
Awesome.
BJ.
Great. Hey, thanks, Chris. So like I mentioned, been deep in the MDM space, MTD space, ensuring, the workforce that an enterprise has can securely access their corporate resources on their mobile devices. As most of you know, obviously MDM is great, right? And helps in managing the endpoints, but does not provide the effective security. And that's where mobile threat defense comes into play, right? So MDM is, for example, Intune, and mobile threat defense is Defender, right? Now, mobile threat defense is good, catches one of the biggest vectors, which is, phishing attacks. However, there's that big gap into understanding the security posture and the riskiness of mobile applications. And that's where mobile app vetting comes into play, right? So, two big attack vectors, right, from an end user perspective who's on these mobile devices. One is phishing, right? The phishing links, as we know, where just given the small device factor of the mobile endpoints, it's hard to know it's a phishing link, right? On the desktop, you can go and hover over it and it's a malformed or domain, which has some spelling mistakes or whatever in there, and that's a risky phishing link. That's where MTD comes into play. But what about those applications, right? As we know, end users are so used to mobile applications on their personal side that they go and download all these applications. And every day you're hearing more and more about these mobile applications that could be malicious or could be harvesting the end user data, not just end user data, but it's corporate data also, right?
Mhm.
And what has the most information about you, probably more than your spouse knows, right? Is your mobile phone. And that's exactly where it is, right? And that's where Microsoft Intune comes in, provides the MDM, Defender comes in, helps against MTD type attacks like phishing, right? But where Quokka comes into play is right filling that spot or that gap around app vetting. So
Mhm.
with that, Chris has a great demo. I'm going to stop here. Like they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. A demo is worth probably 1,000,000 words from Chris. So, Chris, I'll hand it over to you and stop sharing here so you can get into your demo.
Thanks, Vijay. And as this comes up, just wanted to let you all know there is a Q&A uh, portion of this webinar where you can ask questions using the built-in Zoom Q&A feature. So we'll be monitoring that throughout and hopefully answering some questions towards the end of the webinar. So as we go through this, please feel free to pop your questions in early and often, and we'll get to them at the end. So, as VJ mentioned, we didn't want to waste a bunch of time with a bunch of slides right up front to tell you, what this is. We just want to show you. So we're going to start with the view that you might be used to as an Intune user, MDM user in general. This is a view that you might, be already familiar with. So of course, the MDM, the Intune here can see the applications on the device. They can see the apps that you're deploying, your work applications or managed apps as you might know them. So you can see here our managed apps for our Intune instance that we have. We've got our password manager, we've got, Firefox, Google Chrome, our Microsoft Outlook, etc. Beyond that, as many of you know, in a kind of personally enabled environment, you may allow users to download personal apps, to that separate portion of the device, whether it's, iOS with the unmanaged applications or Android, similar deployment model. Intune does have the ability then to see those discovered apps as well, the apps that are on the device, but you're not explicitly managing and protecting and securing with all of your app protection profiles. And this is where Quokka can really shine for organizations is helping you to get information beyond just a list of applications that are in your environment, what you see in the Intune view. And even when you click into the device or specific application view, you're only going to see, where that application is, not what it's doing, what risks it has, and the other information that are critical to deciding whether or not that app should be in my environment. So we're going to switch views really quickly here now over to what we call our QScout portal. And what this will do is take that list of applications, and we can go in here into the settings and see we hook right into Intune through the Graph API and basically just sync that application list. As I'm adding applications, updating applications, as users around my organization are changing, adding and removing personal apps. The Quokka product here, QScout, can stay integrated and hooked into the latest changes. And what that means is all of the capabilities you may know us for in terms of scanning applications to discover behaviors, risks, zero-day issues can all happen automatically and be kept up to date automatically with your environment that you're managing through Intune. And so this is the output of that here. We start really on the policies view because any organization, as you're managing, especially organizations managing, personally enabled devices, let's say you have, I don't know, 1,000 people. You might have 5, 6, 7,000 apps across those, 1,000 people. A set of applications that are reused, of course, across people, but everyone has different interests. Everyone has different things that they like to use their phones for. So, the traditional model of, hey, I'm going to spot check or, do the annual compliance check and scan the application once, it doesn't keep up with the change of pace, both of the new applications coming out, but also of the updates of the applications that are already there. Because as we know, if we vet an application today, it's updated tomorrow, and then next week, and then the week after, and the week after that. Average of 25 to 35 different updates per year for most of these popular applications. That risk profile is changing every update. Now, there might be some consistency in terms of the core features, but as they're adding new libraries, adding new features, removing features, those risks can increase or even decrease for those applications. So it's critical to have that ability to not only spot check applications, but to automatically scan them as they're releasing, as they're updating, and then apply policies, your preferences for what are risky things that you care about to that list. And that's what this policy engine enables you to do. So we've pre-configured this demo with a few different policies here, which are used in our customer environments today across different customer sets, including, this first one, connecting to risky countries, especially for U.S. government. I know there's some government folks registered on this webinar today, but also others that are looking to protect their IP. We know where we get attacked from. So it's important to know what applications on my devices are sharing data with those places where the attacks come from. And this is a policy that allows you to automatically know that and get alerted to that over time. Another interesting one here, obviously there's a ton of different ways that we can look at data, but something that's also very popular is the SBOM failure. So in that policy, what we're looking for is not only hashes of the application or CVEs for what's Facebook, for example, as an application. We're looking at the code that makes up that app. So all of the different third-party SDKs and libraries that are going into each one of your mobile apps, well, obviously there's a chance that one of them contains, an OpenSSL vulnerability or, Log4j, whatever it might be. that are packaged into that application that you use. Well, as you saw in the MDM or even the mobile threat defense view, you can't tell what those list of libraries are for each one of your apps. So how do you know which ones are vulnerable? How do you know which ones contain vulnerabilities, CVEs? And that's what this policy allows you to do. It generates a software bill of materials on demand based on only the app that we pull down from the App Store to let you know which applications have those vulnerable libraries in them. And that's a critical control, really, for all organizations to know, am I running vulnerable code? And today, with the existing tools, without adding something like Quokka's QScout here, you won't know that, and you won't be alerted of it. So but I won't go through every single one of these, but I did want to show you you can also, create policies for all the things that you might be familiar with Quokka's detection, including that SBOM, including that data sharing, data leakage, even, vulnerabilities in those applications themselves. You may know we do, disclose regularly CVEs, for things that we're finding with our engines. This alert here exposes vulnerable interfaces is an example of a 0 day that was found in an application. You can be alerted when our tool finds the 0 day, not when it's added to the CVE database 6 months later. So it's getting our customers the ability to pull closer in on that protection timeline to enable themselves to protect themselves more efficiently. And so what does this look like now when we look at the app list? We can come in here and filter down now, say, for those apps that are connecting to risky countries. And we have this application, Headspace and Scout. Well, guess what? I can click on it and look, it's violating my policy and it's connecting to these areas in the map. It's connecting to China, for example, in this case. So I can be alerted on demand as soon as a new app appears that violates this. And that's critical because, with this whole, DeepSeek thing recently, there was a big time delay, really, for when the app was released, even if it was only a few weeks before that news article hit, the news media hit, where this application was active on a lot of devices running without knowing the risks that were in it. With this tool, as soon as any app comes out, it doesn't have to be DeepSeek, it could be an app that has 100 downloads that's sending data back to these places. You can be alerted right away and take action right away to then deny that application or perform other remediation actions through your MDM or UEM, whatever it might be. And for example, speaking of that DeepSeek application, well, if we filter for that SBOM failure, well, guess what? That application shows up not only for the connection over there to China, but also for an SBOM policy failure for containing a vulnerable library. So this is allowing you now to scale your vetting beyond a one by one by one to every application that's deployed on my devices, I can ensure is meeting my compliance criteria. And I can define that compliance criteria myself. So it's a really powerful tool enabling you now to not only protect the device with the MDM controls, the data sharing controls, not only to protect the user from phishing, with the MTD, but to ensure the software that's running on those devices, the software that's interacting with our calendars, our contacts, our files, all of this data the user has control over, that it's giving access to these apps, you can have some assurance that that data is not being misused or potentially leaked or shared to places that you don't want it to be, which is something that is not possible with the existing set alone of tools, and which is why our customers are really liking this hook in here with the Intune environment to provide that kind of better together MDM, Intune, MTD, Defender, app vetting, and app threat intelligence with Quokka. So that's a quick look at the console here, but part of the big value of this, of course, is over time. I can do a vet today, I could do an analysis today, but let's say it's a week from now or 2 weeks from now, and this is kind of just running in the background. How do I then be alerted of these things and take action from there? So what we have is a very simple way to generate alerts, and the alert can happen over email, as you'll see here. It can happen through your MDM or other ways. But we'll take a quick example here. So this morning I got a new policy violation. Something new appeared in my environment that QScout is warning me about. Well, it looks like I've got a malicious app here called AirFS. So if I click on the view here, I can dive right to that application that was detected, and I can open it up to get my more information. So, in one or two clicks, I have the ability to then view what the issue is without having to dive deep into a bunch of different reports and spend some time spinning up my console. And what do I see here? This is a new capability actually developed by Quokka, our malicious detection engine. So what it is aimed to do is detect zero-day malware. So your mobile threat defense with Defender is going to focus on a lot of the known signatures, using that malware matching, hash matching approach. What this is doing is it's taking all of that deep intelligence that Quokka has about how the applications behave, where they're connecting, how they're using data, how they're transforming data, and we actually created a machine learning approach to learn that malicious behavior, not based on the signature, but based on how the app is actually behaving. And what we can see here is the output of that. It's a very simple output, but we can see, oh, shoot, this application has a 100 out of 100 score for maliciousness. Why is that? Well, it shares a lot of the same behaviors as a Trojan, as a PUA, as a hack tool. And I can make a quick determination before this app is even added to the signature database. So again, the app doesn't have to have activated and done damage for this tool to detect it. So it's adding, I like to say, some defense to your MTD. Your MTD is trying to block things as they happen, and it's absolutely needed and required, to do that. But wouldn't it be great if you had some early warning before that attack happened, so you could prevent the MTD from even having to block it? And that's where the Defender plus Quokka value here is so high, is because you get that zero-day malware detection, zero-day vulnerability detection. It makes the Defender's job much more efficient and easy to do because you don't have to block as much. You can find things earlier on in the cycle. So this is a great example, a point example of that use case here, and then I can quickly go and deny this application. And that could automatically, for example, go feedback to Intune to block that application in certain cases, or take some action from there. So again, goal is here, you're managing tons of things. Mobile apps are just one of them. We want to make your lives easier by doing all the work for you and getting you the information you need in a quick and easy to understand way. Now, I do know that many of our users and potentially registrants for this webinar also do what is called pre-vetting. So if we go back to that Intune view, before I even deploy that Firefox app or that Expensify app, I might want to check it. So again, I don't have to wait till it's on the phone. I can actually do some analysis and do some vetting beforehand. So included in this approach with QScout is our vetting console that many of you might be familiar with. So if we take a look at examples here, where maybe I've got this cam scanner application and I want to go on iOS, I want to scan it before I allow my users to use it. Well, I can quickly come into the store to my console. I can pick the application that I want, just want a quick search, and I can do a pre-analysis before it's even deployed on my devices. I can understand what it's going to do. And then in my console here, I can pick up the results. So this view is a little bit more in depth than the view that you saw in the Scout console, because you're doing a more in-depth job. Yeah, you're pre-checking something before you're deploying it, and it's going to give you a lot more detail and information. So just so you know, a lot of this data is going to be flowing up into the Scout console as well over time, and we'd be curious to hear your thoughts about what you find most valuable too in the question and answer section. So, for this example, for this cam scanner application, I don't have to wait for my policy to alert it. I can check it beforehand and see, oh, it's got 80 different connections to places I don't want it to connect to. Oh, and by the way, what does it access? So it's accessing my camera, my photo library. So all those things I'm scanning in with this application are going to those places that I don't care for or that I don't want that data to go to. And again, from the App Store view, if you're doing this manually, this is where you might start. I'm going to look at the ratings. I'm going to look at the number of downloads. I'm going to look at the reputation of the developer. And in this case, it all comes up green. So if you don't have something to download and look at that application in depth, you're not going to find these things. And You may after some time, but certainly not in a short time frame of a quick scan that the platform can do for you. So again, trying to save time, create efficiencies, allow analysts to focus on what's important for the organization, which is actually protecting the org, not trying to do manual research where it can be automated and provided in a more efficient manner. So that's the a quick demo, and of course, willing to go into depth offline. If you, please feel free to follow up with VJ and I. But we're going to throw it back to VJ now to kind of cover off. Now that we've seen the detail and how the tool works, how does this actually fit in to my architecture?
Right. Thanks, Chris. A couple of questions came in, and these are great questions. One from Brett, that is, developers always swear that, in their code, things are not going to different places. And by the way, Brett, it might not be that they have coded it in, but it could also be a third-party library, as we have seen with many of our customers, where that third-party library might be going to risky nations, let's put it that way, right? And that's exactly what we do. The static analysis and dynamic analysis actually validates that. So you got proof right there saying it's actually going to these places. So let's actually block those domains. Um, Next question is from Greg. Is QScott what he called the SysMav? MAV? And yeah, I mean, it's one. I mean, look at it this way. It's our contextual intelligence, as we call it. It has different ways we present it. So MAV is one way the intelligence is presented to our customers. Scout is another way where we can actually even integrate with the MDM, right? And yes, Omnissa is definitely another one, Workspace ONE, formerly known as Workspace ONE. And then the same thing with Lookout. We actually have a Lookout plus Quokka better together through some of our distributors also. Okay, next question, actually. This is great. Actually, this is, does the vetting of the app go against the App Store version, or do you need to pull it down to your site? So we have something called a watch list. So the beauty is what we do is in the cloud, right? We don't need to be on the device. And actually, even Apple doesn't like people, products on the device which can kind of get to private information, right? URLs access, files access, things like that. So to preserve the end user privacy, we do everything in the cloud, and it's continuous, right? It's a watch list as an app comes out. I think, like Chris said, right? There's so many updates that keep coming out with applications. We can go get there and analyze those.
Yeah. So yeah, Ken, and we do pull that up, those off the App Store directly. So as VJ mentioned, we're wa actively watching that for you. So as soon as a new version comes out, we can scan that application, and it's as VJ mentioned as well, that makes it so we don't have to be on your device. We can do that black box test, the intelligence generation and discovery of those issues just based on the version of the app that's available in the store, because we know the operating system and Apple and Google enforce that that's the same app that's on your phone if you downloaded it from the store. So we call it sometimes a digital twin of your device that we're analyzing in the cloud and allowing you to then view the information without touching your personal data.
Awesome. Okay, great. Let's get into a poll question out here. Um, Take a minute to get that response from the audience here.
So feel free to select multiple things here, and we'll see the results come up and as you all are voting. While that poll is happening, we did get another question from Gregory. Does QScout cover static and dynamic analysis? The answer is yes. It includes both extensive types of static analysis that the team has developed internally, but also does do dynamic analysis as well on real devices to test how the application is behaving as if it were on one of your user's device. All right. Um, I see that the results are coming in, and the main, the top challenge we see is balancing mobile app risk versus mobile app benefits. And I definitely see that with our customers as they are starting to use these programs because, as you don't want to block everything because then users can't be productive and they're just going to stop using their work device. They'll start using their personal device. So you want them to be enabled to be productive, but you don't want them to add extra risk. So I think this is where the app intelligence and especially your own risk profile through those policies is especially valuable because you can define what's my red line. Like in some organizations, it might be that connection to, sharing, sensitive data with specific locations. Some orgs, it might be those critical vulnerabilities, whatever it might be. But you can define your red line and have an easy defendable answer for why you're blocking something and something that the user can understand as well, because they don't want that risk either. So we definitely hear that as a challenge, and tied to that, one below that, defending the decisions. If you're blocking without solid data, um, there's always a potential for pushback there. So we try to arm you with all that information you need to feel confident in those decisions to help you reduce that risk profile without angering or making workers' lives easier, or sorry, more difficult.
Okay, great. Well, Chris, thanks for that demo. Like I said, I mean that was really great to see, and like I mentioned, one of the battle stories, right? When MDM and MTD came together, one of the big things was customer said is like, I put this MTD thing, end users don't know what it is, especially if it's a separate application, right? Um, and the whole idea is, have I gotten an ROI on it, right? As a CISO or a CIO, and that's what we used to hear. Like there weren't enough actionable insights, and as we saw from the demo, that's where app vetting comes in. The alerts that you got on apps that got overprivileged or were shifty or going to risky nations, clear evidence out there, and I think that's really the gist of this, that you want to get those actionable insights. So here's where it all comes together, right? The whole demo that Chris gave, and you see various components here. Just want to call out, left-hand side is the actual device and what goes on the device. The good thing with Microsoft is a single vendor with an agent that goes on that endpoint. You don't need multiple agents. So you got Defender, you got Intune, all from one vendor, right? Especially when it comes to activation and running. And you see in the center is the UEM bit, or the MDM in this case, UEM, because it's not just mobile, it's desktops also. And that's where the UEM manages the device, does things like remediation, quarantine, block, things like that, which is the policy enforcement. End of the day, as you can see at the bottom, it's getting the right, what's called conditional access to corporate resources. But the brains of this is at the top, which is the continuous risk intelligence engine, right? You have obviously the mobile threat defense with Defender sending in the signals, the feed for the phishing sites, for example. But what we talked about is the app vetting, right? And the threat intelligence. And I just wanted to define both. The app vetting is where, you go and vet the individual applications. The intelligence comes in, like how Chris mentioned, right? Zero-day malicious, looking at behaviors, that's intelligence. We just don't look at apps alone, right? We look at sets of apps in the fleet, which is, we call app collusion. That is, an app on its own maybe look fine, but it colludes with another application to exfiltrate your information, maybe your personal information or your corporate information, right? So that's the intelligence, right? And that's fed, as you can see there, with policies and alerts to the UEM, which can actually take action. And frankly, at a holistic perspective, right, if you're looking at your attack surface and doing attack surface and exposure management, then you have things like your XDR. In this case, it is Microsoft Sentinel, where mobile is an important signal into your XDR, which may be getting signals from your desktop, from your cloud resources, right? So, and mobile is really critical because the apps could be harvesting your personal information or your employees' corporate data, right? So this is really, as we see, where it all comes together. And with that, I think, Chris, you called out a few things, that are, how are our customers improving our
Yep.
efficiency? How are they getting a ROI? So it'll be great to call out these three main points here.
Yeah, so this is what we're hearing from our customers when they're starting to leverage this combined Microsoft Intune Defender and Quokka solution. So the first thing, is license efficiency on their Microsoft licenses. They're able to fully utilize their Intune, their Defender, the things that are already paid for with their potential Microsoft ELA. They're able to, see that efficiency by utilizing all those features. Where in the past, maybe that wasn't as possible because there wasn't as much app intelligence with Defender. But now with this combined solution, they're able to leverage those together to gain that license efficiency, which is a critical kind of check mark for them, especially in today's environment. And number two there, workforce efficiency. So I hit on this a few times for in the demo portion, but just one example from a customer that we have, an agency, they went from vetting applications, taking 120 man hours per week or three full-time equivalents to 2 hours per week, less than one person, because that cuts down on the amount of time they have to, submit the application, look at the app store, try to research the developer, try to, do some manual analysis potentially with some open source tools. It's very time consuming and expensive for their time and resources spent on it. And they were able to gain basically a 99% efficiency gain from implementing this tool to cut down on that manual analysis time and app vetting time. And of course, as VJ also hit on, when we have one vendor on the device, Microsoft, it becomes much more simplified in terms of the deployment and maintenance of that deployment. And because we're connecting to Intune, the Microsoft suite, through a single API connection, your complexity in terms of your tooling also is reduced. It's easier to maintain over time, rather than trying to deploy another agent or have several different connections to different places. It's a single connection point providing you this information and the value. So yeah, thank you. I think VJ, just no more questions that I see. I think it might be time to wrap it up.
All right, great. Well, if you have questions, please, and you're deploying Microsoft or any other MDM product, we'd love to talk to you. So please go to quokka.io, request a demo, or contact us, and we'll be more than happy to talk to you.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Cheers.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.